North Carolina has a history of being first. 250 years ago, North Carolinians signed the Mecklenburg Resolves, our nation's first step toward freedom. 130 years later, Wilbur and Orville Wright set up a workshop in Kitty Hawk, mankind's first step toward the moon and beyond. And for the last few years, North Carolina has continuously ranked as the best state in the nation to do business. And those of us at today's Education Innovation Lab have always believed, if we're first in freedom, first in flight, and first in business, why can't North Carolina be first in education too? For a decade now, at Best in C's Education Innovation Lab, educators, policymakers, business leaders, and other education stakeholders have endeavored to make North Carolina the best place in the nation to learn by making it the best place in the nation to be a teacher. Through interconnected research, policies, and programs, together, we've been making that dream a reality. In fact, the conversations had in this very room have produced some of North Carolina's most meaningful, lasting, and effective education transformations ever. It's this collective effort that formed the foundation of what Best in C calls the Educator Innovation Plan. Just look at the incredible work we've achieved so far following this framework. But numbers are numbers. What about the experiences of actual students? Let's look at this progress through the eyes of two students, Tim and Ava. Both were born and grew up in North Carolina, and both went to the same high school just 10 years apart. But while Tim crossed the stage in 2015, Ava flipped her tassel in 2025. And while the school building may look exactly the same in 2025 as it did in 2015, there's a huge difference on the inside. You see, in the 10 years since Tim graduated, the entire school and Ava's future have been transformed by a set of initiatives that were built on research and conversations, just like the ones we'll have today. But come on, how significant of a difference could a decade of policy change really be on their educational experiences? Well, when Tim and his classmates were in school, they were being pushed through an educational environment that was designed and implemented in the 1800s. Sure, the technology and the curriculum have definitely changed since then. But the way schools and classrooms were organized was the same as it was during the Industrial Revolution. What did that mean for Tim? And what did it mean for the people teaching and leading him? Well, we can't say the system was broken. You know the old adage, your systems are perfectly designed to get the results you're getting. Each piece of our outdated education system was carefully designed at one point over the last century and a half. However, over time, those pieces stopped fitting right, or just weren't there altogether. Teacher recruitment was unintentional and archaic, ignoring a changing talent pool and pipeline. The teachers that stuck it out year after year had no real meaningful opportunities for career growth inside the classroom, and effective teachers were tethered to their classrooms, unable to provide support or mentorship. And what about their school leaders? Well, principal recruitment, preparation, and pay wasn't much better. And when that picture came into focus, it didn't look great. As a result, Tim's access to an effective educator was compromised year after year. Sometimes, Tim didn't even have a permanent teacher, but several long-term substitutes, one after another, for an entire school year. And often, it was in really important classes, like math and science. On top of that, compensation relied on stagnant step-and-lane pay schedules where the only thing that determined your pay was years of experience, which ignored teachers' individual skills and talents and the demand for their roles. Who knows how many incredible teachers Tim missed out on in the long run, and how many people felt forced to leave their calling just to make ends meet. Beyond their pay, teachers were leaving because of leadership. As we know, people don't leave a company, they leave a bad boss. And when you consider that principals are basically the chief executives of a school, the way we were recruiting and preparing principals was just as out of date as the rest of the talent system, with self-selection into the profession, poor preparation, and inadequate pay. But when you consider the average principal in North Carolina had 50 direct reports, it wasn't just pay that made their job untenable. That meant it was difficult for even the most experienced, well-prepared principal to be an effective leader. In summary, Tim's teachers and principals didn't have the preparation, support, or resources they needed and deserved to succeed. Which means, in the end, neither did Tim. Who knows how many hardships Tim will face in his life, simply because his educators weren't treated like the professionals they are. Sorry, buddy. But that is where we come in. With these talent changes in students like Tim in mind, key components of what is now known as the Educator Innovation Plan began in 2015. Leveraging best practices in education research, public policy, and the business community's unique talent perspective, we looked closely at Tim's challenges, breaking apart each piece and reimagining how they could all fit together, while adding a couple that were lost along the way. Also that when Ava came along, her puzzle had the ability to form a much different picture. How? By focusing on school leadership, access to effective educators, and educator experience. And after a decade, we have a lot to be proud of. But look, with around 100,000 teachers in about 2,600 schools across North Carolina, not every school has had access to every single one of the innovations that Ava experienced during her academic career. However, every single school in North Carolina does have access to at least one. And that's a start, but there's still a ways to go. That's why, today, at the 2025 Education Innovation Lab, we will review a decade of educator innovation and examine opportunities to further improve the educator pipeline over the next decade, so that students like Tim and Ava can have the best teachers in the nation. Look, we can do this, because remember, first in freedom, first in flight. Join us, and together, let's make North Carolina first in education too.